Welcome to another Thoughts at Scale. So, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I actually, wanted to just talk to everybody a little bit about troubleshooting and, really problem solving long term. And it's funny that, as I get ready to start the live broadcast here, my external lights were on, off, which, again, gives you a little bit of signal that I have my own problem solving that I have to do from time to time. So just another example of that. If you wouldn't mind, as we go through here, if you could just leave in the comments your, where you're watching from, that would be great. I'd love to see, where people are checking in from. But the real sort of basis of today's discussion around problem solving really came from a company that I'm working with where they actually just recently got some results back. And, in the discussion, it was not clear exactly where the problem lied and how the solution would resolve itself. So, it's sort of that line in moving from, problem to problem solved, wasn't exactly as clear as it could be. And so, with that, I just thought that, it was a great topic for the Thoughts at Scale here. So, thought that we could talk about this and walk through a little bit of an example in terms of, how specifically to move from, we have a well-defined problem, and how is it that we define, multiple routes to possibly solve things. The other thing I wanted to mention before we dive too deeply into here is this concept of also wanting to just make sure that people understand that some of the things that we actually see oftentimes is that people will jump to conclusions very quickly in terms of what exactly let's just say the solution for a particular problem is. And then all of a sudden we get, 3 months or 6 months down the road and that same exact problem crops up. And sometimes people will go back to that same exact solution. And I'll give you a real world company example. So I was working for a company that had a tray that essentially went inside of a medical device. And in that tray, we kept seeing that the client, or the customer in this case, wasn't putting their samples in the tray properly every single time. And so as we went out and checked it, we found out that there was a screw that essentially was coming loose in the tray. It wasn't the client that caused the problem. It was actually a screw that had backed out. So this is, a medical device. This is, something now that is a finding that we have to go figure out how are we going to solve. And so the first, suggestion that came back was we need to train everybody to check that screw every single time that they go in. And oh, by the way, we might need to have them go in extra times to make sure that that screw is extra tight. And so, through that process again, you start to look at it. And the key question is, has this ever happened before? And the answer was yes, this happens a couple times every year. And people were saying, well, people forget to tighten that screw whenever they go in. The other question I would have, though, is, are there other possible solutions that we could employ that would be a more permanent solution that would then result in this never happening again? One possible solution could have been redesign the tray that the samples go in. That could have been one, so that screw would never be there. Maybe it's formed in the actual tray itself. The screw's no longer there. Part two could be that they could actually add Loctite, maybe add a torque spec, add additional elements that would help overall with the benefits of never having to troubleshoot having a screw, come loose in this particular device ever again. And I remember internal to the organization, we had several conversations about this specific, thing. And as we go through here, I just would like to use some other. I'm going to use a different example, but I would like to use the example that, have you truly sort of, pulled the thread far enough to figure out exactly, what the specific problem is, yes or no. And if not, then dive a little deeper and look at multiple different ways. I did see that there's a question that, as to whether or not if the talk is started. Hopefully Juwan has been able to get in, but I noticed that LinkedIn actually changed their method of seeing these live discussions. Now you actually have to click in, I think. So that's one additional thing that I don't think that was there before, but that is a change on the LinkedIn side. So hopefully, everybody's able to get in and see the presentation. So what I wanted to bring up first is just a diagram around how we might go about this troubleshooting a particular problem. And as I said, I have an actual example that we'll walk through here in just a moment. But let's just start overall with this diagram itself, in that you should start any sort of troubleshooting with clearly identifying what is the problem that we're trying to solve. One of the things that I've seen in teams is that there will be 3 problems identified as one problem. And so you want to, sort of get the team that's saying that there's a problem that they, want to go through and troubleshoot, have them write it down. What specifically are we troubleshooting? What are we going after? What's the problem that we're looking to solve? And you need to do that in terms of, what is the target, what is the trend, and what is the current state? And so, looking at this and having that level of clarity will help the team troubleshoot just one problem. And I would suggest that only one problem go on one of these types of diagrams, right? That there's not, multiple problems listed out that are confounded among the overall thing that you're trying to troubleshoot. The second sort of section that's in here is the chart. And so if you have current performance data and things like that, obviously you want to include that as a part of, what you're looking at with this, with this troubleshooting process that you're going through. The next part is, what impact will solving this problem have on the organization, and then listing out the team and when are you starting and what is the target date. So I rushed through those a little bit, but I mean, having an understanding of what impact it will have, you really do want to clearly understand that. And then also you want to really know who specifically is working on this particular, problem in the organization will help you best understand this as well. And then in the rest of the Ishikawa diagram, the tier or fishbone or cause and effect, the same diagram has 3 names. Realistically, you want to break down things in terms of the material that's being used. So this could be sales material. This could be things like documentation that's used internally, etc. Then you have the method. Is there a process that's identified and things like that? Even though it says man, this could be man, woman, etc. Overall, this is the person or people that are touching the problem. Then you have machine, taking a look at any sort of computer systems. In our example that we're going to go through, we talk about a CRM system where the sales team is putting data in the specific, case study that we're going to use. Then you have measurement. Again, we're kind of going back to the spot of, do we have data? Do we have performance data? How do we know that this particular thing is broken? What's illustrative of the fact that this particular problem exists? And then lastly, Mother Nature. So sort of outside causes, if you will. It could be Mother Nature, but it also could be, the environment in any specific way. And again, if I go back to the diagnostic businesses that I've been in, a lot of diagnostic equipment is impacted by humidity or temperature control in the facility, or there's a lot of different things that I would sort of lump under this Mother Nature segment. And I wanted to use this case as a real way to sort of illustrate out as well that you might want to change these labels, some of these labels, but I would hold true to most of them. Mother Nature is one that, I personally might, adjust to, internal environment, to, where the equipment is located, or, things like that. At the bottom, you have blue stickies, I guess you could call them, that are there for causes. And then on the right, you have yellow stickies, which are essentially used for improvement. So what I typically would do is I would have the team illustrate out all of the things that they can find that are potential causes. So these are, write out exactly, what are the potential causes for the specific problem that we have, and list them all. It doesn't really serve anybody to leave things that you think are, maybe not a cause, but at the end of the day, maybe all of a sudden everybody's eyes are on it, and all of a sudden everybody says, hey, look, this one specific thing we should actually investigate. This is something we should carry further, which is, it's something else that we'll talk about as well as we move along here. As we get to the improvements, we want to do the same thing. What sort of things are we suggesting in terms of improvements? And you do this with a broader team. This isn't a single person exercise. This is more of a team exercise to say, okay, so what do we think is causing this specific problem? As you go to fill out the diagram, though, the place to start is first you want to fill out the problem, which is that blue box at the head of the diagram here. And then you have each one of the bones, more or less, on the fishbone or cause and effects diagram. You want to fill each one of those in as you go along with the blue stickies. And so as you go to fill this in, you want to make sure that you capture everything that's possible in terms of a cause for the specific issue that you have. There are things like 5 whys where you would ask the question why 5 times in terms of why does this happen, and sort of dive deeper. I don't think at this level you need to do that. The whole idea around this is that this is a brainstorming exercise. You want to, as quickly as possible, get the ideas down on paper in terms of what are the possible causes. There is, again, another thing that I'm going to show you in just a moment that will walk through a little bit more the things that you might want to do in terms of diving a little bit deeper. Okay, so this is the filled in one. This organization is struggling with managing its multiple sales channels effectively. They're having, overall challenges in really being able to dig in and understand what's happening and why can't the salespeople, get out there and manage, the sales channels effectively. So we've listed out the problem statement. This is a medical device company. They have a diverse range of products that they really cater to various healthcare needs. However, they're really struggling with having these multiple sales channels effectively. The company sells its products through direct sales, distributors, and online platforms. Despite having a broad portfolio and marketing demand, the company is not hitting its revenue targets consistently. The next block down on the right-hand side that you see here actually is indicative of part of the problem that we're seeing. They do not have performance metrics, and so there is no chart here. It's actually missing in this case. And so because of that, they needed to, there's a blank there for this particular company. Solving the problem of ineffective sales channel management will significantly boost revenue, improve operational efficiency, and enhance their customer satisfaction. This will position the company also for sustainable growth, giving the company competitive edge in the market. My wife and I have been watching Suits lately, so you see the names Lewis, Donna, Mike, Harvey, and Daniel. So for any Suits fans that might be watching this, that's the reason why I use those. But essentially, this is a completely fictional example, so it's fine to have anything listed here. As you could see, the team got together. They listed out each one of the potential, elements here. So under material, they say there's inadequate sales materials. They have, sales materials that are available, but they really don't help the sales team manage these individual sales channels either. There are stockouts or excessive inventory. And then next to these, so kind of across from each one, then in this case is how I've done it. And I'll tell you how I would do it if there are multiple of these. But so first of all, what I've done is directly across, I've put in the overall, potential solution for this particular item. And so it could be update and standardize the sales brochures, presentations, etc. If I were to be doing this with, let's say, multiple sticky notes, I might choose, in the case of being able to make sure that I can match 1-to-1. So each blue sticky to each yellow one, I might number them. So it could actually number, this one 1, this one 2, and then every solution that comes up, you could have it, become 1.1, 1.2, etc. And then every solution down here, you could have it be 2.1, 2.2, etc. So that's what I've done in the past, just to help you understand how you might facilitate this a little bit better. I think, one of the easiest things to talk about as well is that, we might need to do regular training that's focused on a specific channel need for the organization. So as we dive deeper, there just might need to be overall, training that's done for each one of the teams. You also might have to assign channel managers to each sales channel. That might be another solution for the lack of accountability inside of the organization, that you have as well. And then again, you kind of come down here and you see things like under measurements. I mentioned this with regards to the chart, that there's a lack of KPI tracking. So we're not really monitoring any metrics with regards to this. We're just seeing, the lack of performance kind of on the back end. So you need to establish some level of KPIs that would really help you best understand the performance in this area. And then in terms of benchmarks, this is another thing that I've said before in some of these sessions, is that there's a real opportunity to sort of take a look across our industry and see what sort of benchmarks do other organizations use as their way of monitoring metrics as well. And this is an opportunity for the specific issue also, so that you could set performance benchmarks for each and every channel. That would allow you to say, okay, so online, we're either on track or off track. With external partners, we're on track or off track. And then, each one of those methods, essentially, again, you could kind of, take a deeper look at each one of the ways to look at this. I mentioned Mother Nature whenever we were talking about this, as it could be anything external to your organization. So this isn't necessarily Mother Nature as in the weather. This is anything external to the organization. And so however you would want to choose to retitle this specific fishbone item, you could say things like market fluctuations cause sales to be off. That would be, one. Natural disasters. So this one is definitely, outside weather related, but it doesn't necessarily have to be weather related as you go through this. The last example that I would tell you is that, let's say if we took the man fishbone item, and we said under the sales team, we want to pick apart each and every one of these items. We want to say, okay, so in terms of inadequate training of sales teams, we're going to conduct regular training programs focused on channel specific needs. And as you go through this, what I've done, typically with teams is I will detail out what the results of that was. Did we actually see an improvement? Yes or no? This way, we're taking each and every one of these and saying, hey, look, there's either an opportunity here to pursue this further, and maybe, who knows, maybe you give them ways that they could do training whenever they want to. Maybe you have a video training session that is on demand when people want it versus, having an in-person training class. And then you test against in-person training and virtual training and see, do they produce a difference in terms of the outcome, yes or no? Then you go on to the next one and you say poor communication between sales channels. You want to have some sort of centralized communication, or maybe we're going to use, if we're using Slack, interestingly enough, I was talking to an executive about his not wanting to use Slack this last week. And, but maybe we create a Slack channel, and in that Slack channel, that allows each one of the channel partners to see what's happening in and amongst the organization. This is a real opportunity to sort of, create that bilateral communication across channels and really, enhance things. Again, I have used these sort of mind map diagrams in the past, and it's a very distinct benefit because the entire team can start to get a sense of, here's what we've done for each and every one of these potential items and moved it forward in terms of testing. Does this work in terms of solving the particular issue? Yes or no? And with that, then we're able to move the organization forward. The last one, lack of accountability. So this one, I sort of would pull the thread pretty substantially and want to know, what is it that causes the lack of accountability? Most of the organizations that I personally have been in the past, most people don't show up with the idea of not being accountable for their area. The question again goes back to, are they not accountable because there aren't metrics? Are they not accountable because you don't have sales managers for each channel, as is indicated here? I would continue to pull this thread and ask that question, why is this specific thing happening? What is it that is causing the lack of accountability? Because at the end of the day, most people want to show up to work and support the organization that they're in, and not being accountable for your area, oftentimes is a key question mark, especially whenever you have leaders that are in positions. Now, it could be that the organization promoted somebody that doesn't want to take accountability, or that, by having a manager there that's saying, on a daily basis, are you accountable for this specific thing, then results in solving the accountability issue. So you might actually see that this thing gets solved by having, a manager in place. However, I guess I would also ask the question, would the same solution present itself if all of a sudden you had clear metrics and those metrics were assigned to people? Is accountability something that people find through having, clear goals around a specific target in this case, or do they need, somebody actually telling them, hey, you need to be accountable? So I again, with regards to this specific item, as well as, the training item that's up above, I really would question, is accountability the issue? Do teams really need, more and more training, or are they needing something else that's more robust for the organization? I also would suggest that, in terms of detailing each one of these items, as you're going through this diagram and really sort of, pulling the thread and picking apart why did a specific issue happen, and is this cause solved by this level of an answer, I, again, would detail out what specifically happened as you put each thing in place. And so if you put in place a manager, let's say you put in place a manager for one channel and leave the other channels open. It looked to me like they in terms of this hypothetical company, that they, have a real opportunity to be able to, test different ways across different channels and see whether or not if one thing solves the problem or not. And so let's just say for the online channel, maybe you do something different. You also could have a need to be able to create a solution by channel. And that's not in anything that I've really presented here. If I go back, just one slide here, if you look at each one of these channels that they outline, right? So they say that there's direct sales, there's distributors, and there's online platforms. And so if they're wanting to troubleshoot each one of these, maybe each one of these improvements, each one of the yellow stickies, right? Maybe each one of the improvements has to have 3 answers. Maybe it's not one answer per. And this is, something, again, that you would see through brainstorming, through walking people through the fishbone and really getting people to look at the problem that we're trying to troubleshoot. And again, you could also write 3 problem statements. You could say that in terms of the specific target, in this case, we originally said it was, having, troubleshooting multiple sales channels effectively. The key question could be, is that even possible? Is it something that has to be broken down into each one of those channels to be able to really understand exactly how to solve that particular problem? And maybe that complexity is the reason why we haven't been able to solve the problem long term, because we've been approaching it as one, and we need to instead create an omni-channel approach, to use some of my sales trainer folks that have taught me a little bit about that, maybe that omni-channel approach is the best way to sort of, focus in on, creating the right solution for this particular problem. I talked a lot about sales. I know that, it cuts across a lot of our different organizations, and I hope, that this is, something that's at least got you thinking in terms of the ways that you might be able to approach, problem solving in your organization. I think between the Ishikawa or cause and effect diagram and having a mind map that really walks you through, specifically how are you going to solve a particular problem, it would definitely, help organizations, using this hybrid approach of, taking the problems and moving them over, picking them apart in terms of how are we going to solve this particular item, and documenting each one of those issues. So I hope that this has helped you. And if it has, please let me know, and would love to hear any stories that, where people have taken these diagrams and have used them. If you haven't subscribed already to Thoughts at Scale, I send out the slides in addition to links to the videos and other things. If you go to thescalingmethod.com/thoughts at scale, you'll find that I have the the information there to subscribe, and then I'll send everything out, shortly after we're live here. Thanks a lot. I hope that everybody has a great week, and take care.